Thank you. Welcome, Mike and Kathy. Um, Meeting is Townsend Energy Committee meeting called to order at 7:08 p.m. First order of business is the consideration of minutes. Now, when I went to find my 4/20/23 minutes, I could not find them. So they may not even exist. I thought I had created them and I had named the file, but it turns out the file that was named minutes 4/20 2023 ends up being actually an agenda for the previous meeting. So I may have deleted or overwritten the file. So I will if you can't find, neither of you can find them, we'll from the previous meeting minutes that we'll look at next. Those minutes weren't available yet, according to the minutes for the 5/18. So, but if anyone has a fresh copy of the 4/20/23 minutes, that's what we need to vote on that. So that's
Oh,
not available and won't be voted on now.
yeah, I
Yeah.
see. I see a file in an email from you before the May meeting, and it's labeled. The name of the file is TEC 2023 4/20 Draft Energy Minutes, but it's actually the March 30th. I don't know. That wasn't the meeting you're talking about, right? You're talking about April 20th. So yeah, it's labeled April 20th, but it's really the March meeting minutes, unless it's really April and you forgot to.
Well,
Just change the title or something.
I buzzed over this one for half an hour today, looking through files, trying to find out which one. So that maybe I mislabeled another file, and it's actually the minutes. I don't know.
Well, I thought it was on the website. It's not
No, the minutes don't
on the
usually.
website as like last year.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, last year.
2022.
It happened to be the 2022. I found that, and I was going to claim it, but it's not the right
Yeah,
one.
well, I printed them off and then I looked at it. Nah, these on it.
All right, so I'm going to have to recreate the minutes for the 4/20 meeting, but fortunately there is a video for that, and I already have it, so we'll work with that. The next is the minutes for the 5/18/2023 meeting, which I actually did have, and they printed out, and I emailed that to everyone today.
Mhm.
So we're considering those minutes for approval.
Uh, I see an email from you where you said that was attached, but I don't see the file. Draft minutes for 5/18 meeting for approval tonight. Am I
Hmm.
missing something? Uh, so I think you may not have attached it.
Did you get the agenda for this meeting?
I have the agenda. Was it the same message?
Oh, it wouldn't, but it's in the same document. I don't even think I sent it out at the same time, but
There was a message about the energy master plan discussion, and then there was another message that said draft minutes for 5/18 for approval, but there's no attachment. That was at
you don't
12:06.
even have it, so you can't approve it right now.
Right. I mean, I'm sure I would wouldn't disagree with it. I mean, I don't know if you could send it quickly
Not
now.
very often we come up with, issues with it, and
Yeah.
it could happen. So I see the draft. I see the draft. You didn't get it either, Kathy, then, right?
I don't think so.
Because it wasn't attached to that.
The only thing that I had, the last thing I had to you was um the Mass Energy Insight program. It dropped the mission.
I know this file exists because I've seen it half a dozen times today. I printed it out. So.
Mhm.
Why didn't it go? This is it. It's on screen now. The minutes. You were that then.
Share screen, it will show up everywhere.
Oh, I'm gonna share it. Man. This isn't sharing. I got to get out of the older one, huh? I opened this one without closing the other one. Mike?
Yep, I see it now.
All right. Well, I'll get you a copy later, but this is what we're going to use for now.
Okay.
I'm going too fast. Let me know. After discussion, we voted to apply for all available assistance. Yes, unanimous on that one. Okay, so there's the thing. Did I say this last one correctly, Mike? Or the topic's not reasonably?
Oh, yeah, I'm just reading through that.
Good.
Right.
You okay? Anything else you need to see?
Nope.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Okay. You want to go ahead, Kathy?
Motion to approve the May 18th, 2023, minutes, as stated.
I'll second that.
And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Back to our agenda. I guess we gotta do it. Yeah. How do I change that?
To undo the sharing.
Well, I want to change to another screen. Yeah.
You gotta stop sharing and restart sharing.
Where do I do that? Right here.
Where you gotta get back into,
There it is. New share. New share.
well,
Yeah, that was it.
I think,
That worked. Good. All right. You've got a button called New Share. You're changing screens. Apparently, that's what worked. All right. Next item on the agenda, just to report, you guys all got my messages, I guess, earlier about this. But I was nervous through the summer, you know, around August, late August. I still hadn't heard whether we were going to get the grant or not. So in the adjustments to the quote that we had to have made. So I started getting nervous. I called Karen in August, and she said, "Well, you know, we apparently haven't decided yet." Well, in the middle of September, I got the calendar for the fall. You know, the fall grant program is, you know, you got to decide what you're going to do by October, by the middle of October. I said, "Well, we don't know what we have left on the list yet. How could we? How could we?" So anyway, they said be patient, and it did come in favorably. So good for us. Um, I don't know what advertising they're doing for that, but you know, I've seen another town, the town administrator put out a news release, you know, expressing, you know, what they got and how it's going to work and how great the program is and what a great job their energy committee is doing. And if he wanted to, on the way, he could have said, you know, "Oh, by the way, the energy committee is short 2 people. We're looking for more." So we try to take advantage of that good news, try to get more people in, and that's what I hope we can do. But um, another one under the belt. There's really nothing we can do. We can't do any more Green Communities grant program work until this is done. And the chances of it getting done by, you know, the next by the spring round, I don't know, has never happened before. So, all right, well, there you go. Okay, so Ed has sent in his resignation. Did you guys? He sent that back as a copy to everybody. So did you get that? Yeah, he sent an email.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
I sent him an email, which really trying to initiate our connection and conversation before the meeting, so I can see how he's going to fit in the agenda and all that sort of thing. And he responded by saying that he's ill and he can't participate anymore. That's the first I ever heard of it. You know, I did call him a few days later. I felt crappy about it because, you know, he says he's ill and I don't want to bother him, you know, make his heart or whatever it is, trouble him. But you know, I did want to thank him for his participation here, and maybe you know, for the next meeting, I'll write a thank you note for, and we can all sign it and whatever. But without him, we need all three of us to make what we call a quorum. But Dave was just saying that, you know, for this type of a group, the quorum is a majority, whoever is participating at the time. But I'm not sure how all that does work. But we're good to meet. We've got 3 people here tonight. Thank you for everybody for being here. Now, should you want to talk about Ed's resignation at all? You know, I don't know what else could be done. I don't want to contact him in a manner that says, you know, I wish you wouldn't quit, because it's true. But you know, he says he's got a health issue, so yeah, it may be just contact with us excites him or something in a way that he doesn't like it. You know. There was work that he was going to be doing over the summer and then send it to us. We just looked at the minutes. That's what said that. Maybe he actually wasn't prepared. Maybe he's embarrassed. If he's embarrassed, I would say, don't be embarrassed, then. Did you just say that you can't do it, and we'll work it together. But stay with the committee. You know, that's what I'd love to see happen. We're going to have to do that stuff anyway, and if it's something that, you know, he's stuck, upsets him, or whatever it is, as chair of that subcommittee. I would knowledgeable. He's knowledgeable, sure, and he's familiar with how we do things and what we do here. So, so we'll miss him, but he has resigned. I'm not sure that the format of his resignation letter, which was one sentence, um, is going to do the trick. But he says, due to my own health concerns, I have to resign. Pretty straightforward. All right. If there's no further discussion of that, we will move on. All right. So at the last meeting, we did go for grants that we had not had before. This is some stuff that may you weren't at that last meeting, Kathy, so I did repeat all this stuff on this agenda. When we voted to have all this stuff done, there's a new grant proposal. Some of this stuff is stuff that we normally apply for anyway because it's you know, just processing the grant reports and stuff like that. Eric was very firm in saying that we can't do this ourselves. We need that support. So we replied for that. I'm hopeful that these next two things on that are showing on the agenda, the municipal building and operations decarbonization baseline roadmap and the regional clean energy planning project support, that although preparation towards developing a community-wide plans, those two things I hope will help us with the master plan development and help further us in the decarbonization operation that we're going to be going through. I think there's like probably one more round of Green Communities grants where we have potential to save quite a bit of money as well as reducing carbon. But after that, we're going to be looking at mostly decarbonization, strict decarbonization issues. Now, I use the word decarbonization very loosely here, and we haven't really defined it yet, but we'll be making an effort at that later. The decarbonization is going to be the practice of actually reducing all energy, all burners of oil and gas, natural gas, and replacing that with electric. So there's working towards a zero emissions plan. So I think we could use help with that. Also helping sell it, because it'll be much more professionally done if we engage these guys to do it. So we hope we can do that. I'll tell you guys right now, I'm hopeful that it doesn't take too much volunteer time, because we don't have enough volunteers yet in this committee right now. So hopefully that's stuff that gets done by a professional with some access to information that we provide, rather than our having to participate in development too much of the time, other than our meetings. We'll see how that all goes.
And reinvent the wheel.
Yeah,
And reinvent the wheel with the already got.
Right, they'll already have a plan, and hopefully they can help us work through it. Okay.
So just so I understand, so we applied for grants for these various items, and who would do this? Either, you know, for example, the plans for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, environmental justice, decarbonization.
These are third-party resources that come in to do this.
Okay, so we don't know exactly who it is, but some kind of consultants or something like that.
With this, I did provide some of the background material, because it was a lot of it. I forwarded emails, and at the meeting, I did have one item there. I think this one, preparing community-wide plans. There was a sample that we had, but I didn't bring that to this meeting. It's kind of a second time. We will be able to see all that stuff again, Mike, but my impression is that a third-party professional, not us, develops these. And you know, he'll be developing plans based on what he sees in MEI, for example, or what he sees in the buildings.
Hmm.
And there's an awful lot of information there, but I'm not able to really process that. If we do get a chance to open MEI tonight, I hope we do, and for you guys to look at with me, you'll get an idea of how vast and broad this program is. And if you're not using it all the time, if you go back and use it once every 4 months like I do, you got to refigure it out every time. You know, where
Yeah.
am I gonna find this information? Where am I going to get this? How do I get this to work? So, if they do offer a seminar at some point, they have in the past, in how to use MEI, it'll probably be like 5 or 6 sessions, 1 hour each. You know, but I think I would do that. It's because somebody in town has to know how to use this resource. All right, so moving on to the master plan development. Ed did, provided what I thought was a pretty brilliant idea of breaking this up a little bit, from the kind of uh, difficult to man approach that we had to one that has us responsible for goals, and then everybody else looked at. I wish I could keep this in front of us, so I'm going to read this to you. I had it when I was considering this. One thing is that the goals that Ed provided us were largely just copied from Shirley,
Hmm.
and he acknowledged that, and we acknowledged that. But that I believe that was developed like 10 years ago, 8 to 10 years ago, not necessarily current. And the term decarbonization really hadn't come to fruition. It wasn't being used at the time. Decarbonization is what we have been doing since we started with the Green Communities program. It's what we've been doing since we started as an energy committee. Insulation, air sealing, changing equipment so it uses electricity, new controls, light bulbs. That is all reducing carbon. And actually, the Green Communities grant program measures us not on the money we save, not on the gas that we save, but on the emissions that we reduce. That is the competitive aspect of the program. So I was thinking that if we set our goals around decarbonization, which is what the Green Communities program is asking us to do going forward, everything that Shirley did or has proposed to do in their goals is decarbonization. So if you use decarbonization as a starting point, everything else can kind of flow from that. I'm hoping that's what I've tried to do. So I think, well, let me look at something else with you then. Try to get this other one up on the screen. I'm going to change screens again. We're going to go to the goals of this. Yeah. How do we do this? I might need help. So, where am I? Oh, I want to get that screen. Oh, there it is. New share. All right, sorry.
Okay.
I'm gonna get this going. All right, up here. All right, so here's a new share. What this is, that's a question. What this is the plan that Ed had presented at our March meeting and a meeting subsequently to that. Not really much changed with it after that. I don't know what he did with it, if anything, over the summer. But what I did with this is, as I made notes on his page, and I made my notes in red, and everything in black is what he originally did. And I'm not suggesting we change that, or not even necessarily discussing that right now. But the total concept would be to just starting with what he suggested. Now, he said for the change that we should notify the Board of Selectmen that we've changed the process. And I wrote, but I can't find to show the committee tonight the proposal to the Board of Selectmen, explaining that we've changed the energy master plan process to a new process. And I will find it and redo it before the next meeting if I need to. But because we want to discuss it. It doesn't really probably take a lot of discussion, but I did want to have you guys approve, the way I did it, if you want to send it through. Anyway, the Board of Selectmen still doesn't have a note from it. I don't even know if, other than Kathy, they know what we're doing here regarding the master plan. It's not discussed, right? So that might come at them sideways. And Kathy or I guess Teresa would have to explain it to them. Teresa would explain it to them. So all the stuff that Ed did in here, explaining the reasoning for changes, so that I may include that in my note to the Board of Selectmen, explaining why we're changing the process. The energy addendum, I don't know how they would approach that. I was going to ask the Board of Selectmen or somebody who might actually know how to fit this. If the energy addendum works, great. If whatever, an appendix or whatever they want to do is fine. But it's the content of the addendum that I really wanted to talk about tonight, because Ed had suggested that we include a TEC history, which I wrote and gave to him, but not to you guys. And he was going to use part of that in his development of this, but I never saw anything come of it. So, history, I would include history, yes, and but make sure that it emphasizes that the Green Communities program is competitive based on emissions, not dollars. The MEI, that program is a focus on the emissions as well. Competitive emissions reduction is what that program is, and we're doing okay. But looking at that, I did notice that the water department being included on ours, we have saved about, we're saving now 23.5%. We've reduced our emissions 23.5% since our base year. That's great. We're on our way to 30%, right? But what I noticed is that the first couple of years, 2011, 2012, the water department is the only one that really saved any money. And they went down to affect the town 14.5%. So 14.5% of our savings in emissions have come from the contribution of the water department, not all the other stuff, this $500,000 worth of stuff we did afterwards. I have contacted the superintendent of the water department, spoke with him today, and he did explain that they added solar to their sources back then, and also I learned that he thinks he's probably the water department is the largest electric user in town, bigger than Starlight. I thought Starlight would be the big one.
Yeah, yeah.
But he says
Yeah.
their wells have to use 440 volt pumps because they're pulling water up from way down in the ground, and he's got a ton of them. And so he's pleased with the savings they've achieved, and he watches, you know, his usage and everything. He doesn't need MEI to help him do that, although MEI does have a line for every meter. Every pump has a meter on it, and we know how much electricity they use. He apparently has his own way of tracking that. But the big frustration he has for saving energy and is that when they're building a new structure, a new building for the water department, and when they did that, they took out a loan, apparently a state-related loan, and the loan will not permit them to put solar panels on top of their new 11,000 square foot roof. You could save a ton of energy producing electricity up there, but he says it's going to be a more or less flat roof. And, you know, I don't know so he feels that the state rules regarding, you know, roofs haven't really caught up with the desire to produce more solar electricity. But you know, so if we see any option for him to get over that we should jump on that. But we don't often see that sort of thing at that level. Okay, so MEI, the data, that's what brought that up. When I looked at the data, I was shocked at the 14.5% contribution of the water department right at the beginning, and in the 10 years after that, we saved 10%. So
Yeah. So, Ron, so in other words, if a lot of the savings was because of the installation of solar, now that the green community grants don't pay for solar, that's not part of that program. But nevertheless, that would have reduced their electricity usage. So is that the explanation? I mean, there was, as you and I were discussing in an email, yeah, there was actually a project under the grant program, which was the new type of motors for their pumps, which are more energy efficient. But I don't know if that accounts for that, decrease.
well, he's done everything he can on that end.
Yeah.
He'd like to see town create more solar, and I don't know if green communities is going to change their tune on solar eventually, because when you get down to, you know, all the insulation and air sealing and windows, you know, weather stripping is done. What's left is changing the equipment that burns oil and gas over to electricity. And there's really, you know, the supply side of that is still got to be dealt with somehow. There's no further way of saving energy other than creating
Right.
electricity, you know?
I mean, I don't know what the history of is why green community grants don't cover solar, other than maybe it's that solar is very cost effective anyway. So maybe they didn't feel like they needed to have the incentive of grants, for people to adopt, or towns or whatever, to adopt solar. I mean, it's just so obvious, if you have a
All
suitable
that kind of
location.
plays into it.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's in red here, I added. So the
By the way, you're not sharing it, but I have it. You sent a copy of that, so you don't need to share it on my account. But as far as I can see, it's fine. I have it in front of me.
oh, you got the printout.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you sent it in an email
I don't
today.
know why this isn't going like that. I'm doing what I did before to try to get the screen to. Here it is up there. Where is it? I think we're here.
Yeah, it's just, you know.
Yeah, that's where we are. Okay, you got it.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yeah, he suggested that we we say what we've done with LED installation. We pick a couple of things to focus on. This is just a section of the Energy Committee history.
Yeah.
But along the way, I thought of ending that by saying that in recent years, the focus has become on decarbonization. And this is the first time that many people have heard the term. And I guess even the experts aren't really settled on what it is, because I went online and I took all these definitions of decarbonization. You know, it's done from a perspective of emissions reduction. It's done from the point of view of changing an economy from a fossil fuel economy to an electric economy. Yeah, there's all kinds of ways of looking at it, but these are just some of the ways. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different ways of describing decarbonization, and the way we define it in town is significant. You know, what we use in our goals, because since decarbonization is the goal, all the rest is ways you do it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So these are things that you guys can look at. I'm going to kind of refine it and come down with one that I like, and you can let me know if you like it or not, or if you come up with your own. But these are just some of the, and you can look online, decarbonization. If you don't say energy decarbonization, by the way, you're talking about taking slag off of metal. That's
Right.
the other definition of decarbonization. So it's a very important decision, because you will have we do have such thing as deniers, people who don't really believe that climate change is real. And so if you were to say at some point here that we reduce carbon monoxide emissions as much as possible, well, that gives somebody an out. You're saying look at the Townsend Reading Room. It costs $10,000 to replace the heating plant over there, and it's going to save you probably like $50 a year by going to electricity. It's not practical. It's not, but even looking at the emissions, how many days a year is the place actually used in the wintertime? So you wonder, we've got a gorgeous library, so we really need a reading room. That kind of thing will come up, as we get close. So the definition of decarbonization is sort of key. So energy goals. I start off decarbonization. What is decarbonization? We try to describe it, or maybe we already have at this point. And what does it mean for Townsend? Well, it means the town buildings and vehicles in accordance with federal and Massachusetts goals. Decarbonization is the elimination of all fossil fuels and their emissions. These are to be replaced by renewable electric energy technologies. Do we use the word reasonable? As soon as you say the word reasonable, it provides an out that lets anybody take any amount as reasonable. It's an out, and so you want to give it or not. I would like to say in our goals that we practice efficiency first. This is something that's lost on a lot of people. If they'll go buy a ductless mini split when their attic isn't insulated. So the cheapest energy you can get is the stuff is the energy that you don't waste, right? So we would practice as much as practical, because sometimes you get an opportunity to change a heating system before you get a chance to do the insulation. That we support the insulation and air sealing, weather stripping before going to changing the heating system and those major components. It just makes sense, because when you have done the air sealing and insulation already, you might not need as big a heating device as you did before you insulated, right? Insulation resets the size of the equipment that you need to do the same job.
Yeah.
Ed did include in his down here somewhere about educating people. I broke it up into two components: education to citizens regarding what they can do to reduce their personal carbon footprint. You know, what does that mean in the home? Because what we're doing is in the business, but uh, we should be encouraging citizens to do the same thing. And then this one was educating them regarding offering education about energy efficiency, including building awareness of the opportunities to replace fossil fuels used at home. This was one that didn't come up in Shirley, but it is precisely what we're about to do, is ask people to review the Townsend laws and bylaws to assure that they do not unnecessarily impede the goals of reducing and eliminating as you say, the goal of decarbonization. Just simple. Let's review the laws and bylaws to assure that they do not unnecessarily impede decarbonization. We've already defined it, and then everything else that I said here is already there. So the wording, you know, is this several goals in one? You know, that sort of thing. Consider strategies to improve our energy supply security. I added including potential regional supply, because that's something that is kind of specifically being considered out here. Small towns like Townsend and Ashby, individually we may not come up with the land or whatever we need to do solar, wind, or whatever we're doing. But together we might actually be able to come up with that sort of thing to deal with the problem regionally. And I just added this one at the last minute of leaving the house. Consider potential town ownership of any producing land and energy. I mean, at current, I signed up for that next stamp today.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure whether to do that or not.
I'm going to. I've asked them the questions that I wanted to, but it occurred to me that they're going to make a ton of money. They make a ton of money, and they're using Townsend's land, right? They built the thing in town. You could actually do that. You could actually buy land if you don't have land in Townsend. You actually buy land in a town nearby, and then have the electricity delivered here. So you could actually produce electricity someplace else, and you'd have to pay for the delivery. It's cheaper to buy electricity that's locally produced because it doesn't have to be as far. Less expense that way. But this is kind of the new starting point. I wanted to get an idea from you guys, and I don't know if I've done a good enough job explaining it here, but the basis is that I thought I'd take what Ed has done and try to finish it, polish it, and centralize our goals on the decarbonization act. That our goal is to decarbonize the town. And I think that's what the town's goal should be. We've been doing it for 10 years. It's just that it's coming down to the point where the savings you get out of replacing heating equipment is not necessarily justification for doing it. The emissions are the justification, you know? And I think
Right.
people, there'll be some resistance to that at some point. You know, I anticipate that. But I mean, even you just listening to me, here I am on the energy committee, and I'm talking about the reading room. What the heck do we need that for? You know?
Yeah.
So
Function to it.
yeah, well, there's some things that I'm saying just don't make sense, and I don't know how far Green Communities is going to go. You know, are they going to let someone save 3% of their carbon and spend $50,000 for the new heating system? No, it doesn't make sense. But we are trying to get to zero carbon, and the only way they can do that is to eliminate all, or possess it. You know, what do they call that? What do they call that, Mike? When they sequester, carbon.
Oh, carbon capture? I don't
Carbon
know.
capture, right.
Yeah.
We could do that. That's the thing you can do and still produce some carbon as long as you capture, as much as you're producing, it's still zero, right? That.
how you capture.
I mean, it's probably not anything a town would be involved in. It'd be more like the energy producers. If there's somebody who's still burning fossil fuels to produce energy, utility or whatever,
Yeah, they bury it.
might
They
might use
find
that.
that there are substances that can absorb the carbon and they bury it rather than let it go into the atmosphere.
Yeah, inject it deep underground. It's kind of still under development, I would say. But
Okay.
anyway, so
What do
let
you
me
guys?
understand the context of this. So once, obviously we have to digest this, we can offer suggestions. Um, is this ultimately going to be like the addendum to the master plan? Like, or is that what we're writing? Or are we
There's
just talking?
part. So the first part was just a note to the
Yeah.
board of selectmen telling them that we've decided to change the process.
Yeah, so just to refresh my memory, I mean, originally there was going to be this sort of like committee with a whole bunch of people from all
Right.
different departments, and
Right.
we're going to have meetings. And now we're talking. I mean, I kind of never really got. It was hard for me to see this actually happening,
It
but
was complicated. Had a lot of moving parts.
so it's like we're going to come up with some recommended changes, and then of course maybe other various departments can review it and see if they agree or make comments, or maybe there'll be public comment. I don't know how it would work exactly, but basically we're going to come up with the first cut, and this is like the first cut of the first cut, or like
Right,
an outline, or
this is a draft of the first cut. The first
yeah,
cut hasn't happened yet. But the
yeah.
concept, do you think that I'm on the right track centralizing our goals on decarbonization? That's the key question. Because
Uh,
the other way, the way we were going, copying Shirley, it's very simple, but it doesn't really. But I didn't think that it really provided any central theme of a goal, and
mhm.
decarbonization answers that. And the term is coming up uh, so powerfully now that you already have people saying, "Why do we even need to decarbonize?"
Mhm.
You get it. So that coming up with it as the goal, and whether or not you provide the out, the saying is as much as possible, or to the best of your ability, or whatever. You're giving the out that says, we're not really going to pursue zero, but we'll get there reasonably close. That's is
We're
that
working.
yeah, we're working
That,
toward it. Yeah,
that's goal.
and so if you guys think that's a reasonable strategy to approach our goals, centralized on decarbonization, then that's what you see here is what I will pursue. But we're onto something else if we're not going to pursue this angle.
I don't disagree with it. I mean, I think it's a little vague right now what we mean. As you pointed out, there's a lot of definitions. I mean, the main thing is the one definition is that it's kind of a new, relatively new term. Maybe it's not new, but becoming more widespread, simply for reducing emissions of greenhouse gases. I mean, it's a synonym. It's another way of saying it. It's like a buzzword in a sense. That's one aspect of it. The other is a little more specialized, where we're saying, in buildings, we're going to replace fossil fuel burning heating systems with electrical, or maybe not only heating, but that's probably the prime example. Replace fossil fuel burning with electric, and which would therefore overall result in an overall reduction of greenhouse gases, even though electricity is still generated partially, by greenhouse gases. But that's still right. There's a kind of a specialized definition and a more general definition. So you may mean one or both when you talk about decarbonization, but
I think when we write it, it's going to be set. I mean,
yeah,
people can change it, but what we originally produce is the starting point.
right.
And I just see the decarbonization, explaining what I wanted to do is explain in the history of the Energy Committee what we've been doing, and it starts off with without decarbonization. The term's not there, but at the end, we say within the last few years, the focus of the state and energy has been become decarbonization. And you define that, and you say that's what we're trying to do. Selecting a definition which covers the bases, but isn't too complicated to understand, you know, is my goal. I just haven't come up with one yet. I haven't out of all those, I haven't really come up with a favorite. I'm going to have to come up with, I'm going to have to edit, combine, separate, and actually there's another one I didn't find after I found it the first time, that it said as much as possible, and that's how it ended, as much as possible. And I said, well, that's a possibility that some people may actually go for. But then again, as much as possible is still producing a lot of carbon. No, that's not. Yeah, it's like you have to define how much carbon you're willing to tolerate. And the state is saying 30. That we want to have a 30% reduction by 2030, and we're at 25%. But we're also observing how little $200,000 worth of improvements does. It's like 2%, right? How many years we've got to do that?
Yeah.
And my observation about we did get a quote last year from Rise for the heating equipment for this structure, and I spoke about it with a little bit with Rob, but the savings in money is negligible. There's some savings, but it's negligible. And, it's 150 grand or something to change the heating equipment. So, the dollars are not there. And even the carbon isn't great. It's not like one of those things that you would choose to do over LEDs in a school, because it doesn't really save you much carbon. But it gets you closer to zero. That's the point. That's what the Green Communities program is doing. I can barely, I'm thinking of the situation where, like the high school, what is the heating equipment, like 4, 5 years old, 10 years old, something like that? It's supposed to last 25 years. And we're going to replace it? I have a hard time with that, as I know a lot of citizens will be when they realize they put part of the bill. If the greenhouse, the Green Communities program is not going to pay the whole thing. They pay a sizable chunk of it, but it's still an expense.
Well, it's always going to be that you're going to choose things that make the most sense in terms of whether it's saving on financially or saving on emissions. Something that's replacing an otherwise good system probably would never rise to the top of the highest priority.
That's what it'll come down to. After the work that we just, after the improvements that we just got are done, our savings could approach $100,000 a year. Now that's just buildings. We're not even tracking the vehicles. They don't do any cost analysis on the vehicles. Fuel. I wish they did. I know that they could if they wanted to. You just take the average cost of fuel for any given month, and you apply that to the gallons, which they have recorded. And then you got a cost, right? So I don't know why they haven't done it. You could actually do it yourself, but I'm going to ask why they haven't done it, because they another reason for not doing it. Okay, so it sounds, if what I'm hearing, the general gist of this, where I'm going, sounds okay. I will advance it as much as I can before the next meeting, so that we may actually have some decisions to make. That'd be my goal, but we'll see. Next on the agenda was rebuilding the Energy Committee. I had written a quick blurb, a news release, and I was going to give it to Mr. Slagle to see if he'd, send it out. But it cites some data that I want to check, because if you're going to publish something, you have to double check your data, right? You don't go haphazard. And I was going to check with Karen Chapman to make sure that I'm using NEI properly, interpreting it properly, so that I can say this is our savings, and not have it blow up in my face later on. Okay. But that's all I got right now is that news release, and I guess the ad that we placed for the ad that they put up for the Energy Committee is not working, because they did that back during the summer and haven't had any inquiries yet. But we're looking for 2 people. The other aspects of, besides the news release, when we do go to when we send this off to the committees, they'll learn the history of the Energy Committee from the stuff we send, and as well as the goals. And maybe someone from in the town will be interested in joining us in one of those other committees. But that's something we definitely got to work on, because we're down to our minimum here.
Yeah.
That's all I had. Does anyone else have anything else to add to that on rebuilding the Energy Committee? All right. Any topics not reasonably expected by the chair 24 hours before the meeting? I was actually going to tell you about the water department there. That's another thing. We're after 8 o'clock anyway. Okay. Public forum. Nothing to say. Okay. Schedule next meeting. Calendar is in the phone. Let's see. Today is the 4th. Does Wednesday or Thursday work better for you? Doesn't matter. They both okay for you, Mike?
Yeah, typically. Depends. So, there's no particular preference depending on which week it is or whatever.
All right. November 8th, does that work for anyone? Everyone?
Yeah.
November 8th, Wednesday. Yep. No problem.
Okay, let's do it then. 7 o'clock. Hopefully, the same arrangement. Meeting here. We'll see what I have to check to make sure the room is available. But other than that, Dave thinks it'll be available, so we'll work out that.
All right. Yeah, I'll probably come in person. I just I'm leaving on a trip and I'm packing and just didn't want to leave, today.
Don't blame me. How far are you going?
Somewhat far. Iceland.
Oh,
Somewhat far.
Yeah.
Kind of far.
You drive yourself to the airport?
That's what yeah. Remember I asked you, what does it usually cost for, I'm just going to park at one of those places in Chelsea, it's a little cheaper
okay. Okay. Well,
but I would consider, the, like a service. I don't know.
Let me just look at something here, because I get jobs and I have, what they paid in here. Let's see. That's from there. Logan to Harvard was $185. $185. That's the airport to Harvard, and then we
It's
also
probably more to Townsend because Harvard's, halfway.
it's like $10 more. I had a Westminster. No, it was Princeton to Logan this morning.
Yeah.
Almost $200.
Yeah. And then that's each way. So that's roughly what I'm paying for parking, around that, a little over 200 for 13 days. I mean, I guess if it was a really long trip, like several weeks, you wouldn't want to like pay for parking for all that time. But
Well,
Yeah.
have you thought about taking the bus? Because you could park there long term.
yeah, I hadn't thought too much about it. It gets complicated, as it is, you have to allow so many hours, because of the traffic and just making sure you get there, and you have to be there 3 hours in advance, or you're supposed to be. I mean, I'm sure you could be a little later than that, but for an international flight, you're supposed to be there 3 hours. So it's like, it gets ridiculous. Like we'd have to leave, even though my flight's not till noon, I'd have to leave at 4 a.m. or something.
We give people from Townsend. We make people schedule 3 hours before their flight, and that includes international everything.
To leave Townsend 3 hours before?
We leave Townsend 3 hours before. Leave the customer's home if it's in Townsend 3 hours before the flight.
Really? Because it could take 2 hours. It could take 2 hours to get there. So then you've got 1 hour. That's not enough time.
You're right, and I have brought people into the airport where they only had like 20 minutes to get on the plane. So, it's up to you, but that's the minimum.
Yeah. Well, in the old days,
let's interrupt this discussion a second, so that we can adjourn the meeting.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry,
Okay.
got off on a tangent.
Okay, so 8:10 p.m. adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 8:10. The meeting's adjourned. Thank you.